Everything happens for a reason, a story of trust, timing, and transformation. Part 1. The Unseen Pattern. You ever have one of those days where everything just falls apart? You miss your alarm, spill your coffee, get stuck in traffic, and then, just to top it off, you're late for something important. And in the moment, all you can think is, why me? But later, maybe hours, maybe years, you look back and realize, if just one of those things hadn't happened, your life might have taken a completely different turn. That's the thing about life. It's not random, not really. It's patterned, quietly, invisibly. And every little twist in the road, every delay, every heartbreak, every unexpected goodbye, might just be the very thing that's saving you from something else. But we rarely see that in the moment, do we? Let me tell you a story. The man who lost his job and found his life. Aaron had worked in the same company for nearly 15 years. Reliable, predictable, not flashy but consistent. Every morning at 7:45, like clockwork, he caught the same bus, sat in the same seat, and scrolled through the same morning headlines. He wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't exactly awake either. And then, one Thursday afternoon, it all came crashing down. Budget cuts, layoffs, a short, sharp meeting, a box to pack his desk. He came home that night in silence. His wife sat with him. No words, just a quiet hand on his shoulder. Inside, he was collapsing. Why now? Why me? I did everything right. Weeks passed, no job, no purpose. His mind became a battlefield. Doubt and shame, fear and regret, like vultures circling. Until one morning, walking aimlessly through the park, he passed a group of students gathered around a teacher under a tree. He stopped, listened. The teacher was speaking about mindfulness, presence, and living on purpose. Something clicked. It wasn't dramatic, no lightning bolt, but something shifted. Arun came back the next day, and the next. He started meditating, started writing. He volunteered at a local NGO, teaching underprivileged kids math. Slowly, gently, the numbness gave way to clarity. 3 years later, he opened a learning center, his own. He tells people now, losing that job, best thing that ever happened to me. I just didn't know it yet. What if you're in the middle of a puzzle you can't yet see? Imagine trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle, but you're only allowed to see 5 pieces at a time. It would look like a mess, wouldn't it? That's life. You don't get the whole picture at once. You get a piece here, a breakup. Another piece there, a strange coincidence. Another, an illness, a loss, a random encounter with someone who changes everything. Individually, they make no sense. Together they make a masterpiece, but only time reveals the full pattern. Buddhist philosophy calls this the unfolding of karma, not as punishment or reward, but as the organic ripening of cause and effect. Every action, every delay, every detour, all of it is connected in ways far deeper than we can logically track, but it's only in hindsight that we ever see it. Why we resist the things that save us. You know what's funny? We fight hardest against the very things that redirect us. The relationship that ends, devastating in the moment, might be the thing that makes space for a healthier love. The job you didn't get, it's the one that kept you free for something far more aligned. The house deal that falls through, it leads you to a place where peace actually lives. But we resist. We cling. We say, this can't be right. It hurts too much. As if pain is a sign of something going wrong. But what if pain is just the body's way of releasing the past? What if loss isn't rejection, it's a realignment? There's a phrase often heard in Zen teachings, let go or be dragged. It sounds harsh at first, but it's really an invitation to stop gripping so tightly, to loosen the need to understand everything right now, because sometimes life is moving things for you, not against you. Synchronicity, the universe's quiet wink. Have you ever had something happen that felt too perfect to be coincidence? You think of someone and they call. You get lost while driving and find a place you end up loving. You're delayed at the airport and meet someone who changes your life. These moments aren't just cute stories, they're what Carl Jung called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that point to an underlying intelligence in life's design. Buddhism doesn't label them miracles, but it invites us to be awake to them, to notice the subtle ways the universe, or life, or karma, or fate, whatever word fits, whispers to us, not with loud declarations, but with nudges, with feelings, with timing. You just have to be paying attention. You don't have to see the whole map to trust the road. Part 2. When life says not yet. You know that feeling when you want something so badly, but life just won't let it happen. Maybe it's a job you applied for 10 times, or a relationship that almost worked but didn't, or a dream that feels so close you can taste it, but somehow always slips through your fingers. And in those moments, it's easy to feel like the universe is ignoring you, like maybe you're not good enough, like maybe you missed your chance. But what if not yet isn't a denial? What if it's preparation? The sacred pause life has a strange sense of timing. It's rarely convenient, almost never predictable, and often frustratingly slow. But there's a reason. Think of a seed. Once it's planted in the earth, you can't rush it. You can water it, nourish it, protect it, but it won't sprout just because you're impatient. It has its own rhythm. So does life. Sometimes we're like seeds that haven't sprouted yet. We feel buried, forgotten. But something is happening in the dark, quietly, deeply, and when the time is right, click, everything blooms. The illusion of being ready. Let's talk about readiness. We often think we're ready for something just because we want it, but wanting and being ready aren't the same. Think back on your life. Remember that time you were sure you wanted that relationship to work, or that job, or that move to a new city. And now, years later, you can see it would have been a disaster because you weren't ready, not emotionally, not spiritually, not energetically. And the truth is, life often holds things back not to punish you, but to protect you from yourself, to give you time to grow into the person who can actually handle the blessing you're asking for, because receiving too soon can be just as damaging as never receiving at all. Not yet is still movement. We live in a world addicted to speed, fast results, instant responses, same-day delivery for everything, including our dreams. But real growth, real healing, that takes time. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine hiking up a mountain. You're tired, thirsty, frustrated. All you want is to reach the top, but you're stuck at a narrow bend, the path ahead hidden by fog. You feel stuck, but you're not. You're still ascending, slowly, quietly, maybe even restfully. Just because you can't see the summit doesn't mean you're not getting closer. And just because something isn't happening yet, doesn't mean it won't. A story of delay that saved a life. Lena was 28, ambitious and ready to move to New York for her dream job in publishing. She had the interviews, the portfolio, the confidence, but every time she tried to move, something blocked her. The landlord backed out. The job offer was delayed. Her passport renewal got stuck in bureaucratic limbo. She was furious. I'm ready. Why won't life cooperate? A few months later, she got word. The publishing house she'd been trying so hard to join had folded. Layoffs, complete collapse. And just a few weeks after that, a small indie company in her hometown offered her a role where she had complete creative control. 2 years later, she was leading her own imprint on her own terms. She told me once, back then I thought life was holding me back, but really, it was holding me together. The problem with forcing what isn't flowing. We've all tried to force things before. Maybe you've clung to someone you knew wasn't right for you because you were scared to be alone, or stayed in a place you'd outgrown because comfort felt safer than growth, or chased a goal so hard that you burned yourself out trying to prove your worth. We do it because we don't want to feel powerless. But here's the thing. Forcing drains your spirit. Flow restores it. If something feels like you're dragging a dead weight day after day, it's not aligned. That doesn't mean give up the moment it gets hard. But there's a difference between resistance that grows you and resistance that warns you. And life has a way of whispering, not this, not now, not like this. Timing is a language of its own. You might not hear words, but you'll feel it. The peace in your gut when something is right, the tension in your chest when something is wrong, the weird coincidences that keep pointing you in a new direction, the doors that won't open no matter how hard you knock. These are messages, not always loud, but clear if you're willing to listen. The Buddha taught that clinging leads to suffering. When we insist, demand, attach ourselves to our timelines, we often find disappointment. But when we trust the unfolding, even the delays begin to feel sacred, because they are. Maybe you're not being tested. Maybe you're being trusted. Here's a thought. What if the delay you're experiencing is actually a vote of confidence? What if the universe isn't testing your patience? It's trusting your potential. Sometimes life holds off because it knows you're capable of more than what you're settling for. Sometimes it makes you wait because the version of you that will really thrive, the version with resilience, depth, and clarity, is still being formed. Waiting doesn't mean you're weak. Waiting means you're growing. The quiet power of stillness. In a world obsessed with action, stillness feels like stagnation. But in Buddhist practice, stillness is not absence. It's presence. It's awareness. It's transformation in slow motion. When life pauses you, it's often giving you a chance to heal what you haven't healed, learn what you haven't learned, release what you haven't let go of. So the next time things don't go your way, try this radical shift. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this preparing me for? You're not late. You're right on time. Read that again. You're not late. You're right on time. You haven't missed your moment. You haven't fallen behind. You haven't failed. Life isn't on your clock. It's on its own. And it's wiser than you think. Even if you can't see it now, trust this. Some of the greatest blessings in your life are still gathering momentum behind the scenes. And when they finally arrive, you'll say, oh, now I get it. Until then, keep going, gently, patiently, because not yet doesn't mean never. It just means the best is still forming. Part 3. The lessons disguised as pain. Pain is a strange teacher. It doesn't use a whiteboard, doesn't hand out clean bullet points. It shows up without permission, through heartbreak, loss, betrayal, loneliness. And at first, all it does is hurt. No clarity, no closure, just raw ache. But here's the wild part. When you look back, months, years later, you often see that the worst pain was your deepest turning point. Almost like life used suffering as a scalpel, not to destroy you, but to open you. When everything falls apart. You ever had a moment when it felt like the ground gave way beneath you? Like your heart shattered so hard, you didn't know how to breathe? Maybe someone you trusted walked away without warning. Maybe you failed publicly. Maybe you got the kind of news that bends your soul in half. It's tempting to ask, why? Why me? Why now? Why this? And sometimes there's no clean answer, just silence. But here's what Buddhist teachings gently remind us. Suffering is not punishment. It's purification. It strips away illusions, ego, expectations, the false sense of control we cling to. And in the space left behind, something real can finally grow. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. Let's talk about rejection for a moment. It stings. We take it personally. We turn it inward. I wasn't good enough. But often what looks like rejection on the surface is actually redirection underneath. Think of a plane being rerouted mid-flight. It's not crashing, it's adjusting, avoiding turbulence, shifting course for something safer, smoother, better. Life does this too. The job that ghosted you, it would have drained your spirit. The person who left, They couldn't walk with you into who you're becoming. The plan that fell apart? It was too small for your growth. We don't always see it right away. But if you're honest with yourself, haven't there been moments where, after the storm, you looked back and whispered, "Thank God that didn't work out"? That's the magic of redirection. It hurts like hell in the moment, but later it heals you in ways you didn't know you needed. Pain is the beginning of presence. When things are going well, we tend to go on autopilot. Wake up, scroll, work, eat, sleep, repeat. But pain, it grabs your attention. It stops you in your tracks. It forces you to feel, to examine, to ask deeper questions. That's not a curse, that's a call to come back to yourself, to stop running, to sit with your truth, even if it's messy. In Zen practice, they say, the wound is the place where the light enters. Think about that. It's only through the crack that the sunlight touches what was hidden. It's only through heartbreak that your heart actually opens. The story of Maya, broken but not defeated. Maya was 52 when her husband left, out of nowhere. 2 decades of marriage, gone in a single sentence. For months she barely ate, cried herself to sleep, questioned every memory. But then one day, something shifted. She was standing at the sink, washing dishes, and she just stopped. The quiet hit her, but instead of panic, there was peace. For the first time, she wasn't living someone else's script. She didn't have to explain her laugh or make herself smaller. She started painting again, took a solo trip to a retreat in Dharamshala, learned how to be alone without being lonely. Now, 5 years later, she teaches art therapy to women recovering from divorce. "I thought I lost everything," she says, "but what I really lost was everything that wasn't me." The illusion of control. Pain often comes when life doesn't go according to plan. But here's the hard truth. The plan was never real. We cling to our timelines like lifeboats, married by 30, stable by 35, fulfilled by 40. But life doesn't care about our spreadsheets. It has its own intelligence, and often the moments that feel like chaos are just life clearing the path. You were too afraid to walk on your own. You didn't get derailed. You got rerouted. And maybe, deep down, you knew that version of your life wasn't truly you anyway. Grief is a portal. Grief doesn't just come when someone dies. You grieve a version of yourself you've outgrown. You grieve old dreams. You grieve comfort. But grief isn't the end. It's a doorway. And what lies beyond that door? Depth, empathy, groundedness, a kind of beauty you can't fake because you earned it. Pain, when it's fully felt, doesn't just wound you. It weaves you into something softer, stronger, more awake. It burns away what doesn't serve you and makes room for something real. Don't rush the healing. Let's be honest, healing isn't pretty. It's not spa days and journaling with candles. It's raw, ugly, lonely sometimes. One day you feel hopeful. The next, you're weeping in the grocery store because your song came on. That's not weakness. That's a process. And the more you try to rush it, slap affirmations on it, skip over it, the more it lingers underneath. True healing, it's slow but solid, and it happens in strange ways. A conversation with a stranger, a walk in the rain, a moment of silence where suddenly you feel okay, not perfect, not invincible, just okay. And that okay, that's the beginning of a new life. Pain has purpose, but you decide what it produces. You ever notice how 2 people can go through the same tragedy and come out completely different? One becomes bitter, the other becomes wiser. Why? Because pain doesn't shape you by itself. Your response does. You can let it harden you or soften you. You can use it to build walls or build bridges. And it's okay if your first reaction isn't graceful. It's okay to scream, to doubt, to feel broken. But somewhere along the way, you get to choose. What kind of person do I want to become because of this? That's where the power lies. Not in avoiding pain, but in transforming it. You're not broken. you're becoming. Let me leave you with this. You are not broken because you've been hurt. You are becoming. Becoming someone who understands depth, who listens differently, who loves more consciously, who holds space for others because you've sat in darkness yourself. That's not weakness, that's evolution. And the most beautiful people you'll ever meet, they've all been through something. They don't wear it on their sleeve, but you can feel it in their presence, in their compassion, in their calm. They've made peace with their pain and turned it into purpose, and so can you. Part 4. Trusting the process. When nothing makes sense. Have you ever been in that space where everything feels like a mess? Where nothing is going the way you expected, relationships are strained, plans keep falling apart, and you feel like you're drifting in a fog with no sense of direction? Yeah, that space. It's uncomfortable, lonely, confusing, and if you're like most of us, your mind probably screams, "Why is this happening? What am I doing wrong?" But here's a truth that sneaks up on you as you get older, wiser, and a little more spiritually awake. Confusion is not failure. It's a sign that something deeper is trying to emerge. When logic breaks down and life stops making sense. We grow up being told that if we follow certain steps, things will work out. Study hard, get a good job, be happy, be kind, get love in return, work hard, success will come. But then life hits, and it doesn't always follow the script. Suddenly you do everything right and still get hurt, still feel lost, still wonder if there's something wrong with you, but there's not. You're just being asked to step outside the old logic, to trust something beyond formulas, to surrender. And yes, surrender is a hard word. It sounds like giving up, but in truth, it's the opposite. Surrender is giving in, not to defeat, but to a deeper rhythm that's already working for you. Buddhist wisdom, let go of the raft. There's a famous parable from the Buddha. A man is crossing a river. He builds a raft to get across. It's sturdy. It carries him. It keeps him safe. But once he's on the other side, he continues to carry the raft on his back, dragging it through the forest, struggling with every step. The Buddha asks, is he wise to still carry it? Number, because what once served him has now become a burden. Life is like that. We cling to people, stories, expectations, old ways of thinking because they once helped us. But there comes a time when those very things start holding us back. Trusting the process means being willing to let go of what no longer fits, even if it once felt essential. You don't have to understand it to trust it. Here's something we rarely say out loud. You don't need to understand everything to move forward. Really, you don't. You can take a step without knowing exactly where it leads. You can breathe even in the middle of uncertainty. You can cry, question, doubt, and still move with grace. Because trust isn't about having all the answers. It's about feeling your way through the dark and knowing that light is somewhere on the other side. The story of Raj. Losing, wandering, discovering. Raj had it all mapped out. He was going to be a surgeon. His parents were proud. He was top of his class. Everything was lining up. Then came the panic attacks. They started quietly, a tremble here, a cold sweat there, then full collapse during an exam. Doctors said it was stress. He took time off, tried again, same thing. Eventually, he left medical school, ashamed, confused, lost. He spent the next year doing odd jobs, teaching music part-time, taking long walks by the river. Everyone thought he was wasting his life, but slowly, clarity began to rise from the chaos. He realized he didn't want to fix broken bodies, he wanted to heal broken spirits. Today, Raj is a counselor and mindfulness teacher. He works with young people who feel like they've failed, helping them see that sometimes failure is just redirection wearing a disguise. He laughs when he tells his story now. If you told me then that it would all make sense later, I wouldn't have believed you, but you know what? It did. It really, really did. When you're in the middle, everything feels like an ending. Let's be real. When you're deep in the mess, when your plans collapse, your heart breaks, your future blurs, it doesn't feel like a process. It feels like destruction. It's hard to trust when you feel like you're falling apart. But sometimes falling apart is the very thing that sets you free. Think of the caterpillar. It doesn't decide to become a butterfly. It dissolves. Inside the cocoon, it literally breaks down into mush. Identity gone, form vanished, complete chaos. And only then, from that mess, wings form. We call it transformation. But first, it looks like loss. Stillness is also a step forward. When life pulls you into stillness, when nothing is happening and you feel stuck, it's easy to mistake that for failure. But stillness isn't stagnation. It's incubation. Like seeds resting under the soil. Like breath held before a leap. Like silence before a song begins. In Buddhist practice, the stillness is not emptiness. It's sacred space. It's where clarity starts to whisper. So if you're in that space right now, where everything feels slow, uncertain, blurry, don't rush to fill it. Breathe into it. Listen. Something is forming beneath the surface. What trust really looks like. We often think of trust as peaceful, serene, calm. But real trust, it's messy, shaky, full of doubt. It's saying, I don't know what's happening, but I'll keep walking. It's crying and still showing up. It's feeling afraid and still saying yes. It's not perfect confidence, it's courage in motion. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to be willing, because willingness cracks the door open, and life can do the rest. Stop demanding closure. Start living the question. Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. It's beautiful, isn't it? We're always trying to figure things out, to make life neat and explainable. But what if, instead of rushing for answers, you just held the questions? Why didn't that work out? What am I meant to learn here? Where is this leading me? You might not get a quick response, but if you can sit with the question without needing to solve it right away, one day the answer will live its way into your life, in a moment of peace, in a coincidence, in a stranger's words, in your own reflection. The process is always working, even when you don't see it. There's a force beneath everything. Call it karma, call it divine intelligence, call it flow, fate, the Tao, the whisper of the universe. It doesn't always speak your language. It doesn't care about your calendar, but it loves you enough to break your plans when those plans are too small for your growth. And that breaking, it's not the end. It's the middle. So here's what I want you to hear. You're not failing. You're forming. You're not lost. You're being led. You're not forgotten. You're being prepared. And someday, you'll look back and see that this moment, the one you're in right now, wasn't random or cruel. It was part of the masterpiece. Part 5. When the truth reveals itself. It doesn't always happen in a flash. Sometimes truth reveals itself like a sunrise. Quiet, gradual, barely noticeable until suddenly the whole sky is full of light. You don't realize it at first. You're too focused on the mess, the confusion, the disappointment. You're in the thick of it, asking, why did this happen to me? But then, days, months, maybe even years later, you're walking through a quiet street, sipping tea, folding laundry, and it clicks. Oh, that's why it had to happen that way. And you just sit there, half in awe, half in disbelief, heart pounding a little, eyes glassy. It's not even that something new has happened. It's just that you finally see. Truth is patient. It waits until you're ready. The truth doesn't rush. It doesn't shout. It waits. It waits for your defenses to soften, for your mind to quiet, for your heart to become still enough to receive what it's been resisting. That's why some things don't make sense right away. Because if they did, we'd run right past the lesson. Truth arrives when the soil of your soul is soft enough for it to land. And when it does, you don't just understand with your brain, You feel it in your bones. The puzzle finally comes together. You ever try assembling a puzzle without knowing what the final image looks like? Piece by piece, it's frustrating. You second guess. You doubt. You wonder if something's missing. But then you get to a certain point, and suddenly you see the picture. Everything starts clicking faster. Each piece makes more sense because it has context now. There's clarity, direction, purpose. Life is the same. The breakup you thought broke you, it taught you boundaries. The job you lost, it opened you to freedom. The friend who disappeared, they made room for real connection. It all begins to make sense, not in some fake, forced positive way, but in a quiet, grounded knowing. The pieces never stopped belonging. You just didn't have the full picture yet. The goosebump moment you didn't see coming. Let me tell you a story. Nikhil was supposed to take the 6:40 train to meet a client in the city, but he missed it. Alarm didn't go off. No time for coffee. Total chaos. He was furious, embarrassed. The client was important, and he felt like he'd messed up big time. While waiting for the next train, he sat on a random bench. That's where he saw her, Ananya, a girl from his university he hadn't spoken to in 12 years. They talked, caught up. She worked in publishing now. He'd always wanted to write. 2 weeks later, she introduced him to her boss. 6 months after that, his first book was published. He laughs when he tells the story now. Missing that train felt like the worst thing in the world. It turns out it saved my whole career. That's the thing. Sometimes the moment that feels like failure is actually the moment fate steps in with a better plan. The silence before the real answer arrives. There's often a long, quiet stretch before clarity comes, and in that silence you'll be tempted to fill the space with overthinking, with panic, with questions that loop endlessly. But clarity isn't born from noise. It rises from silence. Stillness is the space where life finishes its sentence. And the truth? It doesn't come dressed in drama. It arrives like a whisper, a sentence in a book that hits you just right, a line from a movie that makes you pause and rewind, a friend saying something that echoes exactly what you needed to hear, and suddenly it all makes sense, not because life changed, but because you changed. I had to go through that to become who I am. That's the phrase. You hear it in therapy rooms, on podcasts, in late-night conversations between old friends. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I'm grateful it happened. It sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. You can hate what happened and still love who you became because of it. That's the paradox of growth. The fire burned, but it also forged. The storm rattled, but it also revealed. The loss gutted you, but it also grew you. And now, you speak differently. You listen more carefully. You carry compassion in your eyes because you've been there. That's the kind of depth no textbook or seminar can teach. Only life, only pain, only presence. The hidden hand behind it. All you ever feel like something beyond you was pulling the strings, like someone or something was choreographing things quietly in the background. Buddhist teachings sometimes describe life as a vast net of interdependence, Indra's net, each node connected to the others by invisible threads. A decision made years ago ripples into a moment today. A stranger you met once ends up being your bridge to a new life. An experience you hated becomes the root of your purpose. There's a hidden intelligence at work, not necessarily religious, but deeply aware. It doesn't always make sense in the moment, but it has its reasons. And sometimes that reason is you, your growth, your awakening, your becoming. Closure isn't always a door. Sometimes it's a window. We think of closure as something clean, neat, final, but often truth doesn't come wrapped in tidy bows. Sometimes closure comes through a song you haven't heard in years, or seeing your ex smile with someone else and feeling nothing but peace, or walking past your old office and not missing it anymore. That's closure. Not because you got every answer, but because you've outgrown the question. You don't need to understand everything to be free. You just need to know you're no longer trapped in the story. When it finally makes sense, you breathe differently. Have you noticed that? When things click, when you finally understand why it happened, you breathe easier, you smile more, you stop rehearsing the past, you stop fearing the future, you come back to yourself. Not as the person you were before, but someone wiser, softer, clearer. And that peace? It's not from knowing everything. It's from trusting what you've already lived. From seeing that even the worst chapters had a kind of grace in them. From realizing maybe everything really did happen for a reason. Final chapter. And one day, it all makes sense. We spend so much of our lives searching for reasons. Reasons why people leave. Reasons why things fall apart. Reasons why that dream slipped through our fingers. Or why we had to go through seasons of such unbearable silence. But slowly, if you're patient, if you let time soften the edges of your heartbreak, if you allow yourself to not know for a little while, a new kind of wisdom begins to speak. It doesn't always shout. It doesn't always offer answers you can explain to others. But deep inside, you just know. That's why you start to see how the pieces connect, how that delay protected you, how that detour led you to something better, how that heartbreak carved out room for something far more real. And no, it doesn't mean life suddenly becomes perfect. It just means you're no longer at war with the unfolding. You become a different kind of strong. You stop needing life to look a certain way. You stop forcing timelines. You stop begging for closure. You stop waiting for permission to be at peace. Instead, you breathe deeper. You hold space for uncertainty. You learn to smile even on cloudy days because you trust that the sun is never gone. It's just momentarily hidden. And the more you trust, the more beauty you start to notice in the little things. The sound of rain on the window, the unexpected text from someone who was thinking of you, the way your heart still hopes even after all it's been through. This is the quiet strength that comes from living with faith. You don't need to understand everything, just enough to keep going. You'll never get all the answers. That's not what life is about. But you'll get enough. Enough to take the next step. Enough to forgive. Enough to heal. Enough to open your heart again. And slowly, life starts to feel less like something you're trying to solve, and more like something you're allowing yourself to experience. You stop fighting the river, and you begin to float. Your life was never off track. You just couldn't see the pattern yet. The wrong turns weren't wrong. The delays weren't punishments. The heartbreak wasn't the end. It was all leading somewhere, here, to this moment, to this version of you, the one who is wiser, softer, a little more awake, a little more free. And now maybe you can whisper it to yourself, even if just barely. Everything really did happen for a reason. So if you're still waiting for answers, take heart, they're on their way. If you're still healing, go slow, there's no rush. And if you're standing in the middle of a chapter that makes no sense, remember this: the story's not over yet. Somewhere ahead, the page will turn, and the meaning that feels missing today will walk in, quietly, on its own time, with truth in its hands and peace in its eyes. Until then, trust the pause, honor the pain, stay curious, stay kind, and keep going, because everything really does happen for a reason. Even this. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps us reach more people who need this wisdom. By liking, you show that you appreciate content that empowers and encourages personal growth. It only takes a second, and it really helps us grow. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content like this. We're here to guide you on your journey toward inner peace, strength, and self-discovery. Every week we share powerful insights to help you live a more mindful, confident life without the pressure to fit in. So don't miss out on the next video that could change your life.